Yo, welcome back to the Deep Talk Show. I'm Peyton Seeger, and I'm here with Christian Harvey from OneCity Peterborough. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Okay, let
Thanks for
me.
having me, Peyton.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. Well, first of all, can you just kind of tell us a little bit about One City?
Yeah. So OneCity Peterborough is an organization in Peterborough. That's why it's in our name. And our mission statement or our vision statement is everyone belongs and together we flourish. So that's the kind of community we're looking to create is one where everyone has a place where no one is treated like they don't belong here and that we flourish together. And it's important, flourish is an important word for us because we don't want to just create a space where everyone can survive. It's the idea that everyone has a chance to flourish. We do that through a whole lot of different programs. So we have the Trinity Community Center, and that Trinity Community Center operates a day program where about 200 people are fed a meal every day, access healthcare services, harm reduction supplies, all sorts of different programming. And then at night it becomes a shelter for 45 individuals, and every night we're full, often regrettably having to turn people away. So the place is busy that way.
Mm,
We also house about 50 people throughout the city in a multiple
wow,
amount of housing that we have.
wow.
Um, and then we also operate programs like um, an art program, a free
Oh,
vet
wow.
clinic. We have a magazine that we release once or twice a year that publishes art and poetry from people who are on low incomes. We have two houses that are called halfway houses or community
Okay.
residential facilities for men who are aging and in prison to serve out their sentences in dignity in the community. We have Circles of Support and Accountability, which is a program that supports individuals who have committed acts of sexual violence with safely reintegrating into the community. And then we have employment programs. So we employ people, especially in the summertime, who have barriers to traditional employment, and then a whole lot of other little things in between.
That's awesome. Wow. I mean, I'm from Toronto, and I mean, that's something that could definitely be used there. And I
Mm,
mean, yeah, I mean, that's I mean, even when I came the last time, like it's amazing what you guys are doing,
thanks
and
very
it's
much. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it blows me away, and I'm like, I'm so glad that there's something like this
Mm.
here and just out there even. So what kind of got you involved with One City?
So I worked at an Anglican church. I was a minister, and I worked there for quite a long time. And we were a downtown church, and often people would come who were experiencing homelessness or food security, and they would be sent down to my office. And I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I wanted to do something. And one year, there was more and more people who were outside in the wintertime. And so I started something called the Warming Room, and it was a shelter run by volunteers for people who weren't able to or weren't willing to use the current shelter system.
Mm,
And so that kind of started and grew into something called Warming Room Community Ministries, where we offered the warming room in the wintertime. That eventually became year round. And then we also started something called One Roof Community Center, which served meals and it was a drop-in center. That kind of grew, and then we merged with an organization called Peterborough Reintegration Services. That's how it became One City Peterborough. So it became its own kind of entity. I got into it just because um, I mean, part of it was definitely my faith background, is this idea that I experienced kind of God or the divine in interactions with individuals who were often ignored and pushed to the margins. So that was really important for me. I also, if I think about it, I think my own experience um, in elementary school, I hated the feeling of being left out and treated like I
mm,
didn't belong. I
mm,
hated that feeling, right?
mm.
That like bullying or whatever. And when I went to high school, I found my way to like not be bullied and to feel like kind of like to find my own way of kind of fitting in or being cool or whatever. But what I realized is like that still was playing into the system of some people belong and just because I was on
Yeah.
the other side of it didn't mean that there wasn't still a system of some people belong and some people don't. And a really like a game changer for me probably was when I was in high school. There's this guy, and he was kind of awkward, and he got picked on a lot. And just throughout high school, he would like people just would tease him, would bug him, and I didn't want to join in on picking on him,
Mm,
but I mostly just ignored him.
Hmm.
right? I just didn't do anything. And one day, well after we graduated high school, I ran into him at a grocery store and he was working there. And I said hi to him and I was like, "How you doing?" And he's like, "I'm doing well." And we had this conversation. And then he said to me, "Hey, you know what, Christian? I just want to say thank you because you were like one of the only people who was nice to me in high school." And that should have felt nice, but it actually felt really bad.
Hmm.
And why it felt really bad is like his experience was that the person who he saw as being nice to him was the person who ignored him.
Yeah,
And that's messed up, right? When
that is,
your
yeah.
only experience of like kindness is someone just ignoring you,
Yeah, like
right?
just like the bare
The
minimum. And
bare
it's like,
minimum,
yeah.
right? So I was not offering him anything. And I was like, that's not right. You know what I mean? And so I think underneath a lot of it is just the idea of like no one should feel like they're they don't belong in a place.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm studying psychology and I mean, I'm graduating finally.
Mhm, nice.
But something that I've really learned is that humans are very social creatures and like
Hmm.
that social aspect is so, so important. And like, if you're feeling left out, like it can have significant impacts on your mental
Totally.
health, even if you already have like an impacted mental health.
Totally. Oh yeah. I think belonging is one of these needs that we often ignore as being core to our existence,
Yes.
right? And so often we like treat belonging like it is like it's a nice thing. But actually one of the things I've seen over the years is that people will put at risk their access to shelter, their access to food in order to find places where they belong,
Yeah.
right? And so I think belonging is not like a nice to have. It's actually one of those core needs
Yeah,
that everyone seeks
100%.
out. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, okay. So I guess like we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like how has working at One City and with One City impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, it's transformed my life, I would say. I'm constantly growing. I think one of the greatest things is just the relationships I've been able to build. Many of many of the teachers that I've had in my life are people who have experienced homelessness or who are experiencing it, and that has transformed me in so many different ways. Also, the people I get to work with, like this is not something that can be done by yourself, right?
Hmm.
Like I think if we want to transform our communities, we have to do it as community.
Hmm.
And so I get to work with people every day who like challenge me and help me grow, and that I think is has been so important to me as a human. And so it's changed me in a lot of ways. It also, I mean, I think one of the interesting things is that most of us, and I was one of these people, and I think sometimes still go that way, we want to think the world is a fair place,
Hmm.
right? And that's fine because it helps us sleep at night. But the reality is, um, if the world is fair, so I wanna go through and think the reason why I have good things in my life is because I deserve them, because I'm a
Hmm.
good person, because I worked hard, all those sorts of stuff. Um, the flip side of that that we don't say out loud, but is just as that we often like treat as just as true, even though I don't think it is that then the reason why people don't have things is because they don't deserve them. They did bad things. They didn't work hard, right? And and why I want that to be true is because it helps me like when I see someone who's struggling, I can like justify why I have good things and they don't.
Hmm.
Like it seems fair. But the reality is the world doesn't isn't like that. And I think that's
Hmm.
what I've learned through this work
Hmm.
is that the world isn't fair like that, right?
Hmm.
That it isn't just because I have good things doesn't mean I'm a good person. And just because someone is struggling doesn't mean they've made bad choices. It
Yeah,
doesn't work that way. And that's jarring when you first realize it, right? But as you get to acknowledge that as the truth, it allows you to be much more compassionate and caring for anyone you come in contact with.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've recently been thinking, I mean, we're all trying to make sense of a world that just does not make sense.
Hmm.
It just doesn't make sense. This is a question that I'm actually like really excited for. This is a pretty unique one. There's a lot of stigma around homelessness and being in vulnerable situations. If there was one thing you could tell us to help destigmatize, what would it be? If you have any more, then you can obviously share, but
Sure.
if there's one thing in particular that sticks out, what would it be?
I think it's that people don't choose to be homeless. I think mostly the stories we tell about homelessness is the reason why people end up in homelessness is because they make bad choices.
Mhm.
That's why we're at the space that we are. And why that's so dangerous is because whatever we believe is the cause of the problem is going to be the solutions, is going to influence the solutions we offer,
Mm.
right? So if I believe that the reason why people are experiencing homelessness is because people make bad choices, and then my solution is going to be what? It's going to be help them make better choices, right? But I don't think that's really why people are experiencing homelessness, right? So is it just about individuals? And that doesn't make sense about why we've seen an increase in homelessness. Does that mean more people are making bad
Mhm.
choices? Is like certain kinds of music influence or TV influencing people to make bad choices, right? Like what is it that's increased it? Or is homelessness actually because we've made collectively bad political decisions over the last many decades, and then that leads and then that leads to our current homelessness crisis, right? So that I think is really important that to take the blame for why homelessness is existing off the victim and put it where it belongs, which I think is on a system that's left them behind.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. I mean, I can say for myself, and I mean, having like mental illness and being born with mental illness, I can say that like for myself, I know that the only difference between me and somebody that's on the street is the fact that I had support. I
Hmm.
had support. I had a family that didn't give up on me and like,
Hmm.
and yeah, my mom, when I was little, like my mom was right on it getting me help. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we want to tell, like, we can look at homelessness. We have had an increase of homelessness in Ontario by
Mhm.
25% since 2022. That's
Sheesh.
wild, right?
Yeah.
There's about 80,000 people experiencing homelessness in Ontario right now. That's the amount of people equivalent to the size of Peterborough, right? Like
Wow.
that's huge. That's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people and a lot of increase. And so again, when we if we start thinking, okay, the reason why we have that is more and more people are making bad choices, we are not going to address the true root of the issue, right? The root of the issue is actually things like we started seeing housing not as a right that everyone has, but actually we see it as an investment.
Yeah.
And once we make housing an investment, then people with a lot of money are going to buy up more and more of it. And it's going to make it so that others can access it, right? Things that are investments, you want them to be rare,
Yeah.
right? You don't want them to be plentiful. But if things are something that everyone needs, you want it to be plentiful. So we approach it differently.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. This is the last question, which I'm also very excited for.
Cool.
I think this is gonna be
A good
a
one.
good one.
All right,
Yes, a
good. I
very
like a
good
good
one.
question.
What's it like to see someone go from a very vulnerable state to a much healthier one?
Yeah, it's a pretty uh, the chance to journey with people through their growth is pretty exciting. It's a pretty powerful place, right? Now, I would say most of us, all of us grow not so much like this, like in a sorry, it's a podcast, so I probably should say what
No,
I'm doing.
it's
It's
both.
both.
It's both.
So, but it's not just a straight upward motion, right? Like most of our growth is like, 4 steps forward, 6 steps
Yeah.
backward, like it's this process of like slow growth. It's cyclical. Sometimes it's cycling back. It's all these sorts of things, right? So it's not that clear. But the journey with people through their growth in their lives and to participate in it through my own growth is incredibly meaningful. It's incredibly powerful, right? I mean, I'll talk about one individual who I met when he first came out of prison. That's just such a cool guy, but like really terrified of going back into the prison system, all those sorts
Hmm.
of things. Very, was sheltered and then became housed, but very precariously housed. And the journey with him as he like gained confidence in himself, he'd lost a lot of confidence in his
Hmm.
own ability to work through problems
Hmm.
and to get jobs and like be able to realize, oh man, I've got lots to offer, to make friendships, and to see him like just joyful on a regular basis is a pretty cool thing to experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't imagine, but
Hmm.
that sounds pretty magical.
Yeah, it is really magic. It's a pretty sacred space, I would say. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Well, those were all the questions I had for you today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks so much, Peyton. It was a lot of fun.
And to any millionaires or billionaires out there,
Please.
$1 million
Yeah,
right
that's right.
now.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, bye guys. We'll see you next time.